Oh yeah, that's right.
Tuesday the 19th.
Okay.
Yesterday was the 18th.
Dang, man, shit.
What's going on?
Okay, I forgot to go. I forgot to go in a brand first
For what?
to get the counter to going. The counter thing to going. You think it's gonna go even though I hit? Okay, let me see. Hey, while here on end stream, should I hit? What should I hit that there?
Yep, it's streaming.
Right now, I'm still okay. It's 19. Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Kind of got some cloudiness, but don't worry about it. Today's date is March the 19th, in the year of our Lord, 2024. We've been on a little hiatus here at Soluble because of our day-to-day operations. We've been extremely busy. So we had like a 2-week shutdown, but nevertheless, here we are. And we're going to play catch up, if you will, somewhat based on, the things that have happened over the last several weeks when we've been absent from our podcast. First and foremost, former Governor Ambassador Haley has dropped out, and then there were two. So we have one candidate for the Democratic Party in this corner, constitutional loving, fighting for what's best for the country, current Commander-in-Chief incumbent Joseph R. Biden. His opponent, opposite the ring, former president, constitutional menace, constantly under indictment, a team of lawyers always around him. None other than former President Donald J. Trump on the Republican ticket. Now, as Democrats, this has to be somewhat disappointing, but there's a bright side somewhere here that we have to find. And that bright side is that, we've defeated the former president once. He's not our candidate. We know what's best for America. We know what's best for America, of the two. Now, as I said in my opening, on this date, March the 19th, in the year of our Lord, 2024, one person, the Democratic incumbent, Joseph R. Biden, is running to save democracy as we know it. He's the last stopgap. He's the last, the last guard, if you will, standing guard in defense of democracy. And then you have opposite former President Trump of the Republican Party, pretty much running to stay above the law, to stay out of jail. And this is, a real stark contrast. It should be a no-brainer. We're appealing once again and always to that 90-something plus percentile of African-American voters, to stay the course. We've had 4 years here under President Biden, and we needed it. The country needed it. Democracy as we know it needed it. And so here we are with these two men who are vying for power, as it relates to the Oval Office of the presidency of the United States of America. Now, we've had President Biden's medical report to come out, and by all accounts, the doctors gave him clarity. They passed him as fit to serve, no matter what the naysayers say. And this is what we as Democratic voters must understand: to surround our commander in chief. the person that we put on the ticket. And, you can rest assured that our Republican counterparts are going to try and create the narrative that, the current commander in chief is too old. They're going to say his mental acuity is questionable at best. But look at the results. Look at the results. And here you have, a president of the United States of America who has, had a stellar career in the Senate, vice presidency. And then, the vast majority of the American people come along when the president is content to be retired, content with the fact that he's ran for office, over and over again. And, the most he ever got was vice presidency. But we begged, we poked, we prodded because we knew that former President Trump was terrible for democracy. And so here we are. This is our guy. One only need look at results. As I said, a stellar career in the Senate. Those who are in the opposition may beg to differ. They may argue a difference. But a stellar career in the Senate. Served as vice president for 8 years. And just when he's ready to, retire, hang it up, if you will, as it relates to service of country. Once again, service of country, being called to serve, running, wanting to serve, wanting to lead, wanting to be in the forefront of democracy. So here we are. This is our guy. This is our guy. This is, by all accounts, a profile in courage. I mean, the current commander-in-chief has overcome a speech impediment, that we've seen former President Trump mocking on the campaign trail. Nothing has changed there. But this is a profile in courage. He's taking shots when it comes to his age. He's taking shots as it relates to his mental acuity, as I've said. He's taking shots because of his stuttering. He's taking shots because he's a gaffe machine. He's taking shots for us, Democrats, the American people, on behalf of America. And so this is why, we staunchly and adamantly believe that this is a profile in courage. To deal with all this, with all the negativity that is coming his way. His family is under attack. But what we have to understand, most importantly as Democrats, and especially this 90-something plus percentile, that we need to hold the line to give President Biden 4 more years. He's doing it for the sake of democracy. This is what we must understand. He's not running, to stay above his legal troubles. He's not running, looking to meet, a bunch of new rich friends and make friends with them. President Biden is vying for a second term simply because he loves his country. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. He's willing to listen. He's willing to learn from his listening, from his advisors, from whoever's in his administration. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight, opposite of all of that, a stellar career in public service. Overcoming a speech impediment. His family taking shots. This is for love of country, nothing more. And the stark contrast is we have the former president running to stay above the law. This is the choice. This is the choice. And the current commander-in-chief is taking shots in defense of America. He's taking shots in defense of America. By contrast, what do you have? We have the former president out on the campaign trail telling his followers that he's under indictment for them. He's under indictment for them. This is the difference. Just some of the difference that we're facing going into November's elections. Democrat or Republican, our position here at Soluble is that we don't want our presidential candidate being under indictment for us. I mean, as it relates to me as an American citizen, if I'm staunchly 100% behind, my candidate, let me take the fall. Let me take the rap and keep, your image stellar. We don't need nothing that would, taint or threaten your run for office and, the victory that we're looking for on election day. But this is the former president running from a position of the Republican Party who is telling the American people, his followers at his rallies, that he's under indictment for them. And nothing can be further than the truth. Now, other than the fact that the president got a clean bill of health, we know he's fit to serve thus far, based on his latest physical, based on his latest medical checkup. The current commander-in-chief is fit to serve. But moving on from that, we had our colleagues across the aisle from the Republican side who tanked a piece of legislation that, by all accounts, from some of the most important people involved, customs, bipartisanship, experts on border security. We had a great bill. We had a great bill that went through the Senate, passed with flying colors. A bipartisan effort here that the former president, because he has such a strong grip on the Republican Party, was able to take it in the House. And then what happens? We've stated it before here at Soluble, but we have a party now that wants to have it both ways, because shortly thereafter, the legislation was what died on the House floor. We had, some predator who preyed on a young woman by the name of Laken Riley in the state of Georgia. And this happened shortly after the legislation was tanked. We had already, surmised, what would happen, with the taking of this legislation. Our guess was that, would it be the next Osama bin Laden, entering the country, through the southern border, since they're taking legislation. By all accounts, it seems as if, this guy was already in the country at the time the legislation was tanked by the Republican House. Laken Riley happened shortly thereafter. And here we have our Republican colleagues, a Republican Party, wanting to have it both ways. Now, we're trying to solve here. So, of course, we have to hold Democrats to an even higher standard. Than we're holding our Republican counterparts who are of the opposition. But we have a sound piece of legislation here, ladies and gentlemen. And it's been tanked by our colleagues on the right. And then, they have the audacity to want to seize on, this senseless murder of this young woman who was a student at some of the schools in Georgia. They want it both ways. They want it both ways. Where is the sound leadership here? Where's the wisdom and judgment as it relates to the southern border? Unless you forget, to Democrats and common sense independents. You can be brainwashed by it. We're looking, we're observing, we're listening, we're listening attentively. We don't see anything coming from our colleagues on the right and in the form of the former president. The former president is beginning to make veiled threats. Can he not get his voters out? Can he not get his voters out? Can he reassure us, the American people, that he's not for sale, that he's not on the take? We know he's being squeezed by the courts as he runs for the highest office in the land. Now, to that 90-something plus percentile of African American voters that make up the Democratic Party, that 90-something plus percentile, can we hold this line? Where does common sense end and begin as it relates to this upcoming election? We're waiting. We're asking. If there's someone who can, give us that one good reason. Show us, by reasoning, by a statement, as to what we're getting, what we will be getting from the former president in a second term. I mean, the campaign trail, it seems like revenge politics. It seems as if it's time for payback. The world is on fire, meanwhile. Not to mention the problem that we have plaguing us here domestically. Is the former president ready to calm those fires, calm those fears? And so, where it should be a no-brainer, we should take the polls with a grain of salt, but at the same time, we should know that we have to get our numbers out more than ever. We have to get our numbers out more than ever. Because what we're getting on the opposite side of the aisle is more of the same. We've seen this movie before. We've seen it before. It's not a part two where, you're once again sitting on the edge of your seat eagerly, to see what the MAGA movement has to offer. It's nothing that has you on the edge of your seat. And for the fact that you've seen this movie before, you may as well change the channel once again, because there's nothing new to see here. You've seen it already. Well, what happened to domestic tranquility under the former president? What happened to our immigration system? We've never been a country to show fear and feel as if, we have to have a Muslim ban, thereby signifying that, former terrorist Osama bin Laden has won. That's what this Muslim ban would do. It's not a sign of strength. It's a sign of weakness that says, we're afraid. We're unsure. When how can that be that we're afraid when we're home of the brave? How can that be that we're unsure when we have, an intelligence agency that's very capable of gathering intelligence and letting, you know, the systems that be know where all the threats are. Well, here's the former president, as if he's so strong, wanting to, trying to implement, a Muslim ban over the land of the free and the home of the brave. And if this Muslim ban had been allowed to go through, it would show, very much a weakness, very much a weakness, because America doesn't change the course or change its stance because of a terrorist attack that did inflict minor damage on the country. But where's the psyching? Where's the psyching of the home of the brave? The former president understands nothing as it relates to that scenario that I just verbally illustrated. Nothing. Democracy is on the line more than ever. I can't say it enough. Early voting it will soon be starting. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a debate, maybe not no time soon here, but there are going to be debates down the line. If you're not paying attention, now is the time more than ever to pay close attention. You see the former president, in South Carolina, at a rally hosted by some African American group. And what does the former president have for him? What does he have for him? A slight, a dig, as only he can do. That the lights are shining bright. They're shining very bright, but I can see the black people. I see some white people, but I can see the black people. This is the former president in South Carolina. What does that do for you as it relates to pocketbook politics? The fact that we're dealing with climate change, one of the warmest winters that we've had on record. The state of domestic tranquility with crime rampant. What does that do? And so there's a decision that has to be made because democracy is truly on the line. The Republicans think that the American people are really, really stupid. They can't make the case to a vast majority. And if it were the case, they wouldn't be having to dig. Where's the evidence that should be there for there to be indictments coming down on the Biden crime family? You haven't seen any. You haven't seen any. You haven't seen any indictments. Because we live in a country where, these charges have to be evidence-based. And so, once again, instead of the House, taking a leadership position and governing, they're still grasping at these straws. And as far as the Biden crime family, we've seen anything but. We've seen anything but. And yet, the Republicans still dig. And, I wouldn't be surprised if some kind of QAnon type conspiracy or some kind of QAnon type propaganda comes out, sometime September, late August, maybe early October, that, is like an 11th hour, misleading lie to try and throw the election. They can't come out and make the case. So they're trying to dupe the American people. The former president is facing, a legal judgment of, a serious, substantial amount of money. A serious, substantial amount of money. And so, what is his next move? The former president is compromised. He's compromised. He's for sale. But yet and still, by some stretch of the imagination, he is, the Republicans' guy. So, as Democrats, we should, it should be plain and clear to us as to, the level of turnout that we need, to keep things moving in the right direction for the sake of, the future of America. There are so many things that are on the ballot. One of the most important ones is education in this country, and the current state of, educated children in America, as it relates to their reading levels, their math levels, competing with the rest of the world, to keep America that dominant power. What we hear from Republican talking circles is, that we should close the Department of Education. And, what we'll have to do if the former president is successful in regaining the Oval Office is to try and guess what that means. Because there's one thing said on the campaign trail, and then there's something totally different. If, God forbid, the former president was to retake the Oval Office. Very important election here. We have the House, doing any and all to block aid to Ukraine. And, once again, they have the gall, the nerve to say that, well, we need to straighten up, our own borders first. We need to get our own stuff together first here, as it relates to the southern border before we're sending money abroad. While they're simultaneously tanking sound border legislation. While they refuse to vote for it, while they vote it down. This is what Republican leadership looks like. So if it looks like this now, what is this majority going to look like after November, after Election Day, November? Where is the truth? When does the lie become the truth? This is what we're dealing with from a Republican House, from a Republican House majority. They've had a credible witness. They've had a credible witness. And we say this, because this was one of the most used words to describe this former witness who's under indictment, who's under arrest now for false and misleading statements. According to Representative Jordan, he's credible. According to Representative Comer from Kentucky, he's credible. And now, the state of affairs as we know it is that, this former informant, this former Russian informant, is now under indictment, under arrest. So if it looks like this now, how can we, the American people, expect it to be any different after Election Day, November of 2024? When does this lie become the truth? What kind of sound legislation are the Republicans willing to back? What have they brought to the floor in this House majority that is beneficial to the American people, all of America, and not just a wealthy few? And so, this is a back and forth game that has been played for years on end. It's been played for years on end, where we have a Republican in the Oval Office for 4 to 8 years. Then we switch up and we have a Democratic candidate in office for 4 to 8 years. Does America progress between these two different, very different government ideologies? Does America progress? What can we get from the former president now? What can we get from the former president now that we haven't already gotten before? What would happen if heaven forbid, we had another pandemic? You know, this one could be, you know, 2 times as worse as COVID. How would the former president react? We've seen him under pressure in that situation. One of the first things that we know that he did when COVID first landed on America's shores, one of the first things that we know that he did was to blame his predecessor. After he had canceled almost everything that his predecessor tried to do for America, to stamp him out of the history books. And then along comes COVID. And one of the first things that the former president does is says that, the Obama administration left the shelves empty. The shelves are bare. We have nothing. Is this the sign of a strong leader? Is this the sign of a leader that says the buck stops with me? This is a former president who, when the heat gets turned up and the seat of the presidency of the United States of America starts to get a little warm to hot, he's passing the buck. He's squirming. It becomes uncomfortable. And so what kind of profiling courage is this? We've given you the current commander-in-chief's, profiling courage with the shots that he's taken, the insults, the misleading statements, the attacks, endlessly on the president's age. We see it. A president who is taking shots because of love of country. We know this is coming from the right. We know that the vast majority of this is coming from Republican sources. But the important thing that we must remember as Democrats, and we must continue to do, is support our guy. Surround our commander-in-chief. Unless we see that the policies don't work for us and or America. Unless we see, the commander-in-chief doing something other than what he said on the campaign trail. He's trying to give, student aid relief to these kids who are in college and living in debt because of college loans, who's living with these college loans like a dark cloud over their heads. He tried to do just what he said on the campaign trail. The Supreme Court blocked it. The commander-in-chief tried to go out around. He tried to circumvent the Supreme Court in order to make it work. What more can you ask for? What more? So, what we're asking here tonight at Soluble is, listen, you're listening to this over and over and over drumbeat, about the current commander-in-chief's age. But what does it have to do with his ability to lead? With his ability to make, good decisions on behalf of what's best for America and its citizens? We see no harmful effects here at Soluble. From our point of view, we see, the president tinkering with inflation, moving the numbers, doing whatever he can to tame inflation. And he's doing the best that he can. There's only so much he can do with gas prices. We know that the Houthis are attacking right now in the Red Sea area. It's affecting shipping. It's affecting fuel prices. And the current commander in chief has a steady hand on the wheel. Do we want a two-state solution there as Democrats? Is that what's best for the region? Well, your commander in chief hears you. Well, now as you know, it relates to how democracy works. Now that the commander in chief hears you, should you let up? Should you take your foot off the gas on behalf of the suffering of the Palestinian people? I think not. But the important thing here to understand and remember is that you do have a commander in chief who is listening. And that's what this vote comes down to. You have a party here so stuck in its ways, so stuck in its ways. And it can no longer win, stuck in those ways. So what do? They're ready to lie. They're ready to steal. They're ready to cheat. When all they really have to do is come out and make the case as to why they're better than our guy, current Commander-in-Chief Joseph R. Biden, on any and all issues. Where do they stand on climate change? If they have something better to offer than the current Biden administration, our position here is soluble is that we're going to advocate on behalf of Republicans. We're willing to champion any idea that makes sense as it relates to what's best for America and its citizens and the world thereafter. And I say the world thereafter because America leads. And America leads from the front, not the rear. America leads. So what do we have? Fresh and new, or more of the same. One man running to say on behalf of saving America, saving democracy, preserving democracy as we know it. On the other hand, you have former president who's running to stay out of jail, to stay above his legal issues. Now, we hear over and over, and it's easily to be, beguiled. It's easily to be beguiled by Republican rhetoric. But we hear it over and over that, this is an attack from the Democrats. This is an attack from George Soros. The former president has done nothing wrong. None of this is evidence-based. None of this is evidence-based that he hasn't done anything wrong. If he hasn't done anything wrong, then, the state of New York cannot seize his properties. They can't force him to make this payment. That's not the American way. So our conclusion here is soluble is that if they can threaten the former president, if they can put the squeeze on it to produce this financial sum or sell off some properties or have his properties seized or what have you, they must have evidence. If they can do this, in all likelihood, in all probability, this is not a witch hunt. And so we're thankful. We should be eternally grateful for an evidentiary-based system. An evidentiary-based system. Can, the former president run the country and, not be affected by his legal affairs? This is, one of the central and sole questions that we as Democrats and common sense independents have to think about. And you shouldn't have to study long on it. You know, the former president um, has gotten in trouble by actions of his own doing. This is not, Democrats who are digging, who are paying people to come out and falsely accuse the former president. These are things of his own making. He's been crooked. And it's going to be up to us as Democrats and common sense independents to send him packing once again. Because Republicans are holding on. They're holding on to one of the worst candidates that the Republican Party has ever produced. One of the best parties that one of the best people that the Republican Party has ever produced. There's nothing Reagan-esque about it. There's nothing Reagan-esque about it. And we say that here in Soluble because, for so long, former President Reagan, may God rest his soul, has been, the measuring stick for what it takes to be a good Republican. The idea of a sound fiscal conservative. And here you have anything but. Everybody's in trouble. Everyone needs lawyers. Ladies and gentlemen, this does not happen in a system, in a democratic system like the one we live in, where we have free and fair elections, where you're innocent until proven guilty. All of these men started out innocent and had their day in court. Former President Trump, Peter Navarro, Mayor Giuliani. They've all had their day in court. And the system works. They were innocent until they were proven guilty. And now that the process has played out in a legal and fair way, the best that the former president can do is tell us that, it's a witch hunt. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. This is what the former president wants you to believe. When does the lie become the truth? We have Senator Katie Britt out of Alabama, who gives a rebuttal to the Commander-in-Chief's State of the Union address. And she's talking about things that have happened under Republican administration. And that's not to say that it was former President George W. Bush's fault, but these events occurred under his watch in another country. But this is the best that, the opposition party has to offer in the form of a rebuttal. Something that's outdated, something that's misleading. And, this is what you're being asked to consider going to the polls in November. This is the difference. This is the difference. One man who's running for love of country, one man who's running to stay above his legal problems. You don't have, a former president who is a country-loving, country-first president who is attacking our system of norms, who doesn't even respect the peaceful transfer of power, creates a lie, creates an attack on the Capitol on January 6, 2021, simply because he can't stand to lose. That's it. That's all, nothing more. And Because we live in an evidentiary-based system, this is what the evidence has shown. This is what the evidence has shown. That we have the Capitol under attack. And while this is unfolding, while this is beginning to unfold, we have the former president sitting back, watching in amusement on closed circuit television. Watching in somewhat amusement on closed circuit television. And his sentiment is that, these people with guns and weapons, they're not coming after me. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing for tonight, as I said, we've taken some time off because our day-to-day operations have been so extensive, if you will. We've really been preoccupied. But for love of country, we're here. We're still here, trying to separate fact from fiction. We have a former president who's running to regain the Oval Office after being voted out for a second term. And although he's running to lead a democracy, he loves autocracy. How could this be? He loves autocratic leaders, strongmen, Kim Jong, Vladimir Putin, Viktor Orban. But here's one thing that the former president will not do. He will not leave our democracy and go and make himself at home with one of these people, in one of these countries, with one of these leaders who are by all accounts from the former president, are his friends. They're great people. The former president says he's under attack. There's a constant witch hunt. But one thing we must realize is the former president will not leave America. He will not leave America. These people are so great. They run their country so great. You have Tucker Carlson over in Russia, a strong, right-wing guy over in Russia, praising the country, praising their leader. But they won't live there. What they want to do, and they're counting on you not voting so that they may be able to attempt to try and do it. But what they want to do is make America forever being a leader of democracy, a leader of freedoms of people. They want to change it into an autocratic system. So, it shouldn't be hard to figure out. These leaders are so great. They're great people. They're smart people. But the former president, as far as moving the Trump operation, the Trump organization to one of these countries, nothing of the sort. Nothing of the sort. No attempt. No invite from any of these autocratic leaders. And the former president is too shallow. He's not intelligent enough to see that, any of these American adversaries who want to see America fall, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, they welcome the former president's political inadequacies. They welcome them. They know that he's politically incapable. They know that he can be easily misled. And so, they're solely in the former president's corner because, strangely enough, he's the one who is most likely to bring democracy as we know it to its knees, to a close. And so they champion him. Before it's too late for the former president to realize what is happening, America could be on the defensive. American democracy as we know it could be reeling. Here we are, almost 4 years away from the day that we sent the former president packing. And has America fallen? Has America falling into a state of discord that we can't recover from? Of course, we have problems. We have domestic issues here that we have to address. Education being one of the top priorities, as I've stated. But where are we truly? Almost 4 years from the day that we sent the former president packing. America's still standing. America's still standing. And as we try to move forward, we have the former president doing any and everything he can to, make America his own piggy bank, to turn American democracy into something that, only benefits a few, namely himself. And we've heard it for forever. We've heard it from Republican circles. When Democrats have lost, when Democrats have complained. Well, if you don't like it, leave the country. Get out of the country or what have you. And we're not going to use this as a tit for tat moment. We have to rise above. But at the same time, we have to understand that the shoe is on the other foot now. The Republicans have been reeling, not just from the past election, but from past elections. When the former president has told Republicans that they're going to get so sick of winning, they're reeling. Because the former president is not presidential. He can't transform. They expected him to. After the elections of 2016, you had politicians like Bob Corker, Jeff Flake, who expected the president that once the election was over, that he would, transform into something presidential. Taking hold of the Oval Office and raising the bar as it relates to, how a president should conduct himself while in office. And it was anything but. It was anything but. Because strangely enough that, Republican voters in this country can't see the former president puts himself above country. And this is the first for America. We see where it got America from 2016 to 2020. We see where it got us in the midst of a pandemic that the former president didn't have a clue. Encouraged herd immunity, brought out witch doctors, encouraged drinking bleach and dangerous chemicals of this nature. What's changed? What has changed? This should be, the central question to each and every American voter. What has changed? We're waiting to see, who the former president's running mate will be. Something else that's taken place since we last aired. The former president's former VP Pence has come out on the record and said that, at this time he can't endorse him. He can't endorse him. When have you seen this? When in recent or going back in history, as far as one can look, when have we ever seen this? Where you had a VP that you shared, power with for 4 years, that you trusted in, you confided in, who stood by your side through thick and thin, through right or wrong. And now, here you are running to regain power, and your former VP cannot endorse you at this time. We've never. And if there's been a case in time where it's happened in American history, we beg to differ. If anyone out there is listening and that can give us that information that corrects what we're saying, we welcome it. But you have the former VP during the Trump years who will not, who will not and cannot come out on the record and endorse the former president at this time. So, as Democrats and common sense independents, why should we consider it? Yes, the current commander in chief is old. He has age. But with that comes wisdom. With that comes experience. With that comes know how. Russia doesn't want him in. Go figure. Go figure. Because Vladimir Putin knows that our current commander in chief, Joseph R. Biden, is a skilled and seasoned politician. He knows where Joe Biden stands because he's made his stance clear as it relates to freedom of people, sound democracy. He knows where the president stands. And this is something else that should really make us sit up and take note as Democrats and common sense independents. Whoever Vladimir Putin doesn't want is who we should, as America, should want even more. Is who we should want even more. The former president has went against his own intelligence agencies at the time in favor of a tyrannical dictator in Vladimir Putin. First, we've never seen anything like it. This is just one of the many things that we'll be, having to deal with if we were to allow the former president access into the Oval Office once again. So, here we are. Here we are with the two leading candidates of the two leading parties. No labels isn't working. Where is Senator Manchin? With the numbers. Where is RFK? With the numbers. Where is Cornel West? With the numbers. And this is not to say that any of these people are bad people or they're not, smart enough or good enough to gain the Oval Office as a Democrat politician. This is to soundly, plainly, and clearly say that President Biden is our guy, and he should be rightfully so. And one of the main reasons why he should be rightfully so is because we know that because he loves the country so, if he's not fit to serve, he's not going to have to be forced out. He's not going to have to be forced out. He's not going to have to be voted out through some kind of special process, special election or what have you. Because of love of country. If he feels like he's not fit to serve, he's going to volunteer and, give in his power to someone who is more capable. We know this. We can trust and believe this. And so, going forward, we'll continue to make the case. Democracy as we know it is on the brink. World order as we know it is on the brink. We see hot spots flaring up all around the world. Haiti is just one of the latest examples. And, now more than ever, is a time for, sound leadership with wisdom, good judgment, listening to one's advisors, panels, if you will, because we really need to get it right more than ever at this point in time in history. And so, we look forward to bringing it to you as we see it, the good and bad of Republicans, the good and bad of Democrats. Because at the end of the day, our goal here is to solve. Nothing more, nothing less. We're staunchly Democrat, building the economy from the middle class out, from the middle class out. But, for the sake of the country and what's best for it, if that Democratic leadership is not working, we have to call it out for what it is. And just as much so if it's the party of the opposition. There's no time to play party politics here. There are too many things at stake. There's too much at stake for American democracy as we know it. So we have to call balls and strikes regardless of the fact that the picture is Democrat or Republican. But this is what we're getting right now, in the current state of things. The Republicans are governing every day right now with the little power that they have to try and discredit anything that the commander-in-chief is doing. This is what they're doing with their majority. Our position here at Soluble is that they should be governing up to the time of the election. And if nothing changes and they're still in power after the final votes are counted, then they should go right back to governing. But here we are with endless investigations. Endless investigations. As we've told you before the midterms even occurred, that there would be more investigation and little legislation. And here we are. So we have a decision to make. Once again, every 2 to 4 to 6 years, we have this decision. It's nothing new. It's Trump versus Biden, Biden versus Trump. And so we're asking, our listeners and the American people to look at the man and his record, not the man and his age. This is only a distraction put forth by Republicans. The commander-in-chief has been medically cleared. He's fit to serve. Should we not trust and believe in that and get away from this, current political climate that we're in where, if the former president is to, get wind of or get a hold of that information that the current commander-in-chief is fit to serve, then those are Obama doctors or those are Democrat doctors. And nothing can be further than the truth. These doctors have no political leanings whatsoever. And their one job is to tell the American people whether or not, our commander-in-chief is fit for duty, regardless of whether he's Republican or Democrat. But because our colleagues on the right have little to nothing to run on as far as record, as far as new ideals for ever-changing America and for ever-changing world, then they create this propaganda, this fear-mongering. And, what do you see when the rubber hits the road? Nothing. Zilch. Nothing. And so, as it relates to the Biden crime family, as it relates to, the Republicans' hopes that inflation will go through the roof, the wait continues. The wait continues. Meanwhile, the current commander-in-chief is up past his bedtime, for love of country, trying to get it right. And so, we're going to leave it there for this particular podcast episode tonight. We thank you for joining us. We have so much more between now and November. Once again, we apologize for our absence for the past 2 weeks, because of our day-to-day operations, but we have so much more that we want to, bring to the table in order to keep the American voter, especially Democrats and common sense independents, on their toes, aware, fully aware of everything that's happening and why, as best we know it here at Soluble. At the end of the day, the goal is to solve, political partisanship, um, politicians not reaching across the aisles as has been the American way for centuries now, using compromise to get things done. That's our goal, and we'll keep pushing for it, until the time that we're there and we feel like, there's no longer any need to push for it. So we thank you for joining us tonight here at Soluble. We hope that this podcast has been, something of an eye opener, a refresher as to, what's been happening the past couple of weeks. We look forward to, joining you now in the near distant future, as it relates to the election run up to November, to keep you informed and to, bring all relevant happenings as it relates to American politics to the forefront, so that, maybe you can have that eye-opening moment that makes you, sure about who you're voting for and what you're voting for, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Our position is to bring the facts, the truth as we see it, and let the chips fall where they may. So until the next time, this is Soluble. We thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to more lively debate in the future. So until then, this is Soluble signing off. Good night and God bless. Thank you.